Today on the podcast, we have some really interesting news. AI researchers have discovered how to predict a smell based off of the molecules surrounding it. So very, very interesting. It's going to be a little bit in depth, but we're going to dive into this, talk about some of the implications, why we think this is interesting, and really why this is important is because we're starting to move from a space of, AI just regurgitating text or generating pictures and images to all of a sudden AI is getting to interact in a very strong way with our senses, our sight, our touch, our smell, our hearing, things that previously people didn't think were able to do. And this is really interesting as we look at companies like Meta, who is currently building, working on virtual reality and learning how to make really in-depth experiences. All of this kind of comes into play. So we're going to dive into it today on the podcast. Welcome to the AI Chat Podcast. I'm your host, Jaden Schaefer. Make sure that you go to aibox.ai, link in the show notes, to join the waitlist for our new AI platform. We're going to be launching an incredible platform that allows you to build anything you want with workflows in AI. So you're able to chain together ChatGPT and image generators and audio generators to make really powerful apps for your organization, or you can host them on our marketplace and actually generate royalties from them. So make sure to go to aibox.ai and join the waitlist. In addition, if you like the podcast, if you could do me a massive favor and please leave us a review on Apple or Spotify or wherever you listen to your podcast. This helps me be able to get better guests on here as they check the reviews to see how you guys are liking it. So if you could please do that, I would really, really appreciate it. Have you ever wanted to start your own podcast? I record and publish podcasts on a platform called Spotify for Podcasters, and I absolutely love it. Essentially, you can upload from your phone or computer, and it distributes to every platform that plays podcasts. They support video podcasts, and you can make money on the platform with ads or even podcast subscriptions, something that has made my life so much easier as a podcaster. So if you're interested, I highly recommend you give it a try. You can download the Spotify for Podcast app or go to spotify.com/podcasters to get started on your podcast today. The first thing I want to talk about here is the fact that this is a really groundbreaking endeavor. So right now, a team of researchers has developed an artificial intelligence system capable of analyzing the molecular structures to describe how specific compounds smell. So the AI system's findings often align really closely with those of trained human. It's called an olfactory expert, but really someone that can identify smells very well. And this research was recently published in Science. So this research could serve as a foundation for kind of crafting new synthetic fragrances, and also could potentially shed light on how the human brain processes scents, which is, up until now, something that we didn't know a lot about, but we're discovering a lot more of with research like this. So unlike other types of sensory information, smells have a really unique neural pathway. Essentially, they travel directly from the nose to the memory and emotional centers in the brain. So they're pretty much bypassing intermediate neural networks. And this direct connection is why certain smells can trigger really vivid, specific memories, right? Like sometimes you'll smell a certain fragrance. I know for me, it sounds so funny, but there's this specific musty boat smell. And if I smell it, I'm immediately put back into this place where I was sailing across. For those that don't know, I sailed across the South Pacific. I lived on a boat for a year, sailing to almost all the islands in the South Pacific. And certain smells will take me right back there, or others will, bring me back to a time in my childhood. Certain smells will remind me of my grandmother's house when she was cooking certain kinds of food or whatever. So certain smells really do have an interesting, I think a lot of people know this, right? That smells have that power, but it's really interesting why. And the reason is because essentially our sense of smell is completely bypassing most all other parts of our neural net, immediately going to a center in our brain that can trigger those memories. So what's really interesting here is that, this direct connection is why certain smells trigger those. And neurobiologist Alexander Vichko, who is leading a spin-off startup called Osmo from Google Research, he emphasized saying there's something special about smells. So to kind of explore the relationship between a molecule's chemical structure and its resultant smell, Wichko and his Osmo team designed a neural network. So the AI system essentially assigns one or more descriptive words from a list of around 55 terms like fishy or whiny to various smells. And approximately 5,000 odors were analyzed for this AI system to kind of identify a pattern between their chemical structure and then the smell. So this exercise gave them around 250 correlations, which were then integrated into, what they're calling essentially their principal odor map, or their POM. And this POM becomes a reference guide that the AI can consult to predict how new molecules might smell when they're, created or combined. So to kind of validate the efficiency of this AI-generated POM, human volunteers were trained to describe odors using the same set of descriptors, right? They gave them that same big list of, 55 different terms. They said, you could smell this, tell us what you think it smells like based off of one of these 55 terms. And then humans were able to do it. And, this is the same list that the AI was using. And so when tasked with predicting the smells of 323 synthetic but recognizable odors based off of their chemical structures, the AI's predictions were actually remarkably close to the average descriptions provided by human testers. So the AI is really doing pretty much the same as a human tester when actually trying to smell something and get what it essentially know what it smells like. So Stuart Firestein, who is a neuroscientist at Columbia University, recognized the machine learning driven advancements and considers the POM a potentially valuable tool, particularly for industries like food and cleaning products. However, he points out that it doesn't answer fundamental questions about the biology of human olfaction, such as the interaction of molecules with the human nose's 350 odor receptors. So that's another thing that obviously this doesn't have, is the fact that a human nose, right, has 350 different odor receptors, and that makes a big impact on how we smell things. So Pablo Myers, who is a systems biologist at IBM's Center for Computational Health, he says that this research is extremely successful correlating molecular structures with subjective smells through language. However, he questions the notion that a consensus among human descriptions of an odor should be considered quote unquote correct, emphasizing that, quote, smell is something personal, right? Some people, like, for example, my father absolutely hates the smell of lavender, like, with a passion. I think it's fantastic. I love the smell of lavender. But, smell is definitely something personal, where something may smell good to someone and bad to another person. And so I think the next kind of research frontier, according to Wilczko, is kind of understanding how different odors interact with each other to form entirely new scents, right? So beyond just, okay, here are some molecules, what do they smell like? It's like, okay, well, what if we mix the the ocean smell with like the smell of a pine tree? Like what is that creating? So both Myers and Firestein acknowledge that this is a really complex challenge. As Firestone explains, even a single scent like that from coffee, for example, contains hundreds of odor molecules, and the possible combination of odors could reach into the trillions. So this is far too many for a computer to really analyze comprehensively at the moment. Although with quantum computing and other advancements we're making in computing, I think we will get there. But regardless, I think tackling this kind of complexity appears to be the next logical step in understanding not only the world of sense, but also the intricacies of human and us being able to smell things. So this is very interesting. I think this has a lot of implications as we try to decode different scents. I think there's a lot of interesting research. There's probably a lot of value for the food industry, for the fragrance industry, for a lot of other industries in beyond just creating, let's say, food or fragrance, but really looking into like what are the molecules that smell good, like probably doing some AI research where they could, once they do the more in-depth version where they're essentially combining like molecules and creating new fragrances and determining that, it'd be really interesting if they could train a model to determine like what molecules and what combination molecules humans like generally describe as good or bad, right? Because of course we know that all humans have a different relationship with smell. So some people think some smells are good, some people think some smells are bad. It'd be really interesting to train a model on all of the combinations of molecules and find like the combination of molecules that has the highest percentage of a person thinking like it smells good for different reasons, or maybe a man thinks smell good, or a woman thinks smell good, or a teenager thinks smell good. Like there's all sorts of different segments you can put that into, and I think that would be really interesting for the food industry, right? Like making their food smell a certain way, or of course the fragrance industry is a no-brainer. All sorts of applications here, really interesting, and a really interesting way that AI is kind of advancing that research.
This episode is brought to you by Shopify. That's the sound of switching your business to Shopify, the global commerce platform that supercharges your selling. Harness the best converting checkout and same intuitive features, trusted apps, and powerful analytics used by the world's leading brands. Stop leaving sales on the table. Discover why millions trust Shopify to build, grow, and run their business. Sign up today for your $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/tech23.
Thank you for listening to the AI Chat Podcast. If you enjoyed the podcast, I'd appreciate it if you rate me wherever you listen to podcasts. And if you're looking for an innovative group of AI enthusiasts, make sure you check out our Discord channel and also our Facebook community. It's obviously a lot more interactive than a podcast where we can actually share software tools, prompts that we're using in everyday AI. I'll leave a link for those in the description below.